Welcome to another installment of Creative Real Estate Investing, number 7. It is Tuesday night. It's actually 9:15 Central. We're going to dig into a house hacking scenario in my hometown, Florissant, Missouri. This is the northern suburb of St. Louis. And in my world, I'm seeing investors from different parts of the country, West Coast, East Coast, that are investing across state lines in different parts of St. Louis. St. Louis is a good even, steady, even keel type of market that doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. And so there's a lot of investors who come to St. Louis, especially certain parts of the northern county, that want to acquire real estate. We're talking 100, 200, $300,000 properties. When you're living in California and you see a $1 million house every turn, every corner, this is attractive real estate in terms of prices, in terms of barrier to entry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through house hacking, some basics, and what I call the stair step method. The stair step method, it's how I built my real estate portfolio. I bought my first property in 2009, and then I saved up, bought the next one as an upgrade in 2013, and then turned the old one into rental. And that's the recipe that I used for a number of acquisitions before I got into some multifamily, et cetera, et cetera. So Florissant, Missouri. I'm going to pull up a map and share my screen here and just walk through some basics. I'm going to pull up Redfin. I'm going to pull up a couple calculators, and the ultimate goal is going to be, hey, what kind of net worth can you build up by acquiring real estate, stair stepping your way up, and then renting out the old one? So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. We are going to share my second screen here. Okay, here we go. So you can see this spreadsheet. And this is the stair step method calculator. Okay. So I'm going to take 4 property acquisitions over 4 years, and we're going to dig into the numbers. So let's see if I can maximize this a little bit. Okay, maybe not. All right, so 4 properties in 4 years. Well, how is that possible? This is somebody that I'm talking to right now who's working on their second property, and they make, around $60,000 a year. They're saving money. They've got a side job that they make extra money. That money goes straight into savings. And they are aggressively trying to work hard right now, save up money to be able to scale into real estate and be able to get ahead, plant these seeds, and have these properties grow over time. So this spreadsheet is built to where you can plug in the prices of 4 different properties. It's going to add the net equity built up over a certain period of time. And so this spreadsheet is actually built to calculate the equity with each purchase being 2 years. So 4 properties in 8 years. Actually, that's what I'm going to do. 4 properties in 8 years. And so if you're navigating this as a blueprint to build equity, let's say that you buy a 2-bed, 1-bath entry-level property as your first acquisition, and then 2 years later, you're going to buy the next one as a slight upgrade. Maybe it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, and then so on and so forth. So you're going to scale your way up. And so I'm going to pull up Redfin, and we're going to look at a property online, 2-bed, 1-bath in Florissant, Missouri. And we're just going to take a look at some things. So first off, where is Florissant in the grand scheme of things? It's in the northern part of the county. We're going to pull up a map, and then we're going to pull up some listings. So stair step method, again, we're going to be assuming I've got somebody that's got decent credit scores. We're going to do a 5% down payment loan, conventional. So I'm going to maximize this, pull up the map. So we are in St. Louis, Missouri, giving you a little bit of a, if you don't know where St. Louis, Missouri is, it's in the Midwest, the Gateway Arch. And so you've got St. Louis City. And just a history lesson, first off, a history lesson. St. Louis city limits is St. Louis city limits. So when you hear about all the crime, St. Louis being the crime center of the world, Detroit, etc. Well, you have to take that with a little bit of context, because it's based off of the actual city limits of St. Louis, which only has like 270,000 people. This red line is the city limits for the city. And then you've got the county. So the metro area is roughly, 2.8 million. So when you look at a per capita of crime and you're looking at the city of St. Louis, it's a little bit skewed because the actual city of St. Louis is very small compared to the city of Chicago, which is not like this, where you've got this, this separation of city and county, where in Chicago it's all encompassing. So I digress. Back to Florissant. Where is Florissant? It's in the northern part of the county, and from a comparative standpoint, the prices in the northern part of the county, North City, are going to be a little bit more suppressed than in other areas, and so that's why you're seeing some people invest across state lines in certain parts of the northern part of Florissant. So here we are. Florissant's up here. You can see. Again, this is where I grew up. So my parents still live there. Good part of town. So back to Redfin, Florissant. We're going to look for a 2-bed, 1-bath property, see what price it's at, and then run some numbers and calculations. So I'm going to filter this to 2-bed, 1-bath. Okay, here's one for 150. It'll pull it. Okay, this is 3-bed, 2-bath. Okay, maybe I'll use a little bit of a lower end one. 3-bed, 2-bath. Okay. I'm sorry. We're going to do 2-bed, 1-bath. 2-bed, 1-bath. Okay, so this is a good little starter home. 129, 2-bed, 1-bath. So I'm gonna plug this into our spreadsheet, our stair-step method spreadsheet. So we're gonna plug in 129, 5% down, and I'm gonna use 6.5% as a rate, as kind of a placeholder. So principal and interest payment is going to be $774. Let's say your taxes and insurance, you're going to be a little over $1,000. And so the rent part of it, if I go to Zillow and I plug in that same address of this 130K, so we've got 20 Durhecke Road. We're going to plug this in and get a Z estimate. And what we're trying to figure out is, hey, if this ultimately becomes a rental property down the road, will the rent estimate, will it cover your payment with some excess to cover for some expenses here? So what are rents? Okay, $1,239. Okay, so we're gonna just skip through this. Again, the principal and interest is $739, so we should be okay covering that payment. So back to the calculator. So 129. We're gonna plug this in here. So this is our first property, 129 with 5%, and you can see right here, 4% appreciation is our assumption per year. So this is gonna calculate your appreciation It's going to calculate your principal pay down, and together is going to be the amount of equity that you build up in 1 year. So in this first year, you'll have paid the balance down, the value will have gone up, and you'll have equity build up. Total of $6,990. So after 1 year, 121, your value would be 134. So your equity buildup will actually be 13,000 total. So if I fast forward the clock on this to year 2, your equity starts at 6,450, and now you're at 20K. So this calculator is going to add this up, and so fast forward to 5 years, you're at 42,000 of equity buildup. Okay. So now I'm going to skip to the second property. So 2 years later, we're going to save up and we're going to acquire the next property. Now, I always talk about the second property being the hardest. And as I'm pulling up another property, the second property is always going to be the hardest. And the reason is that, historically, most people, when they acquire the second property, they typically are going to sell the first one. And that's going to help you have the money for down payment. It's going to help you set up their debt to income ratios and make it easier to be able to qualify. So if you haven't sold the property, well, where are you going to come up with a down payment? If you haven't sold the property, how are you going to be able to fit into debt to income ratios with both payments? Well, that's where this becomes, the more challenging. The second one's always the hardest. And so if you can save up money for the second one, and then also one thing about conventional loan guidelines is that you can use a proposed lease to offset that payment on your departure residence, the one that you're going to be departing and turning into a rental. So those are a couple things to be aware of. So here's a 3-bed, 2-bath. This would be kind of a good next stair step property. So 170, I'll just call it 175. And so we're going to plug this into the calculator. We're going to scroll over. We're going to go to 175, 5% down, a rate of 6.5%. Again, that's just a placeholder rate. Principal and interest, $1,050 plus taxes and insurance. You're probably going to be in the $1,400 range altogether. So if I come back to rents in this area, what are we going to be tracking for in terms of rent? So back to this property. This is that 3-bed, 2-bath. I'm going to copy this address, throw it into Zillow. Zillow's good about the estimates. Redfin, I don't know exactly what they show. Redfin's data is more up to date than Zillow. Zillow's data is lags. So different tools for different purposes here. And again, this is a late night, last second live that we're going to do. So if you're out there, if you have any questions, I think we have one person on right now. So if you have any questions, let us know wherever you may be. Okay, so Zillow. All right, I'm checking my streams here. Is this coming through on? Okay, yeah, we're coming through. Okay, that's good. Good. Coming through on YouTube. Okay. So what's the Z estimate on this one for rent? $2,000. Jeez. Okay. So your payment's probably going to be in maybe the $1,300 to $1,400 range. So again, the thought process here is that you're going to buy this one as a primary, put 5% down, and then continue to save up with the goal of turning this into a full-time rental. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the drawing board, and we're going to find the next property stair step up. And so this is a 3-bed, 2-bath. So let's see here. What is this? Higher price. Okay, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2,400 square feet, 250K. Okay, you're probably gonna maybe want to get into something a little bit bigger, more updated. So let's just take this one here. 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet, 286, new construction, and you got a family ready to take a little bit of a jump. So we're gonna plug this in here. So 286, 5% down, 6.5% rate. And so again, as we're on the third property, now we've got 2 full-time rentals. We're just assuming that, let's say you cover your payments and you break even on expenses, and we're really just looking at the equity buildup from these other properties. Again, this is all, makes it sound very simple. It's not that simple. There's a lot that goes into the whole process with renters and leases and expenses and handyman and all that stuff. This is just the blueprint of the math. So in the first year, you go from $8,750 for your down payment, and that's your initial equity. So after the first year, your value goes up from $175 to $182. So where's that? $7K. You pay your mortgage balance down a couple thousand, so your equity builds up $9K in the first year. Second year, $27K. Third year. So again, by the time you're buying the third property, you're already 4 years in on this. And so now you've got renters paying this. And you've already built up $47K of equity. Which then on year 4 of this property, you're actually on year 6 of this one. So you're built up $51,000 of equity. Okay, so back to this one. So 286. 6.5%. And I'm just going to skip a couple steps here because, again, this is just a very quick jump start in the stair step method here. Florissant, Missouri. So you live in this property for 2 years, you save up, you're getting ready to buy the next one as a slight upgrade. So we're going to find something on the market that's going to be a little bit higher. And let's see here. So now we're looking for something maybe in the 3s or the 4s. Let's see. Here's one for $349, 4-bed, 2.5 bath, 3,300 square feet, Mono Blue. I know that neighborhood. Had a friend that lived there growing up. Okay, what just happened? Where'd you go? Lost that property. Where'd it go? Not sure if I lost a connection here, but okay. Malfunction. I'm going to reset this. And we're going to go change this to 350 minimum and just see what pops up real quick. 390, 480. No. Bring it down to 300K, open up the search. Is that it right there? Okay, there we go. Here's another one. 4-bed, 2-bath for 350K. Okay, cool. So back to the stair step method calculator, we're going to plug this in for 350K. And the profile of this person, you start out, let's just say you're 27, 28 years old, and you're making 50, 60K. Now, the person that I have in mind, they're in their mid-20s. They bought their first property at 24. So when they turn that first one into a rental, they've got a pool of friends that are ready and able renters. And that's the thing, is that this is becoming a renter nation. It's harder and harder to qualify or want to acquire real estate. So if you're going to do a house hack, and if you're in your 20s, you're going to have, decent pool of renters out there. Okay, so 350, 5% down, which is 17,000 and change. We're going to change this to a 6.5% rate as a placeholder. And you can see, in the first year, the value of the house would go up about $14K. Your equity would go from 17 and change to 35 and change. And so real quick to this one, principal and interest, this is the third property, 1,700 and change. Taxes and insurance is probably going to put you over 2K. So back to turning that one into a rental. That was our 286 property. So let's plug this one back into Zillow and see what the rent estimate is. Okay. But yeah, this person, increasing income in their field, getting raises, got their second job, stockpiling cash. So the whole point is that you get into this journey and you continue to increase income, be able to save more money. And not only is your money and your assets compounding, your skills are compounding. You're getting better at your job. You're getting better skills, getting better at saving money. And so you're continuing to double down on what you're working on. Okay, 1639 rent estimate. That doesn't sound right for a 3-bed, 3-bath, but okay. New construction, so it's not really registering the data properly, but that's fine. You're going to be able to cover that payment, I'm sure, with the $2,000 rent. It's all said and done. So we've got our spreadsheet filled out. We got 4 purchase prices, 129. 2 years later, you buy the next one as a slight upgrade to 175. 2 years later to 286, and then 2 years later to 350K. So these fields are preset to calculate the equity buildup, combining each of these properties in its actual slot of the journey. So 2 years later, 2 years later, 2 years later, it's calculating that correspondingly. So on this first property, right, if I scroll down to month 120, which is your 10-year mark, you've got 88K of equity buildup. And then on the second property, if I go to year 8, which would be that's year 5, 6, 7, 8, you've got 93K of equity buildup. So this is going to add it up accordingly. So year 10, you've got 389 built up. And again, if you add up the down payment amounts, 6,400, 8,700, 14,000, 17,000. So you've got 47K of down payment money that you put in. And with this plan, obviously you're making payments on your mortgage, right? But at the same time, if you were renting somewhere, that money is just going to live, or there's no equity buildup. So year 10, you got 390K equity buildup. Fast forward to year 20, you're over $1.1 million. Year 30, you're at $2 million. So that's the power of real estate. That's the power of the stair step method for the everyday person to be able to get into the game and build wealth through real estate. So again, there's so much more that goes into this. You've got tax implications, you've got expenses and rental management and dealing with tenants. You've got multiple things to worry about. This is high level, very simple. But again, this is just something that Some people that have the desire to get ahead and retire early, take control of financial freedom, the whole FIRE movement, all that stuff. This is an example of somebody who wants to be able to retire early, that methodically navigate the real estate waters and build equity through real estate. So if you come this far on this live, what are we, 25 minutes in? If you have any questions, message us in the comments wherever you see this, and let's